Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Again, thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shantae Moore. I'm one of the certified financial educators here at Oak Brook Financial Center. Again, welcome to everyone who joined us in person. We just had some good Chipotle to eat. And then welcome to everyone on Zoom. A nice thing that we're able to do is just invite people from all across the country to get this information. And that's kind of what I want to share. Just a quick second is like, why are we having this important conversation? Wouldn't you agree that people are scared right now? Like, we have an election year, we have presidents, like second assassination attempts, like we hear interest rates are dropping. Like, what does that mean? We hear our market is fluctuating up and down. What, 2 Mondays ago was like a big, oh my God, what happened in the stock markets? And we know that folks are concerned. You're concerned about your savings. You're concerned about your retirement accounts. You're concerned about the things that you worked hard to save to build your wealth. And, here at Oak Brook Financial Center, we work with a company, our company is called WealthWave, the Money Milestones Company, the How Money Works Company. We pride ourselves on educating folks about these very complicated concepts and strategies and making them simple so that the average person can understand what these things mean. How can they use this information to make the best financial decisions for themselves and their families that they're able to do? So I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our special guest expert before he comes over. One thing that I'm proud of this company is that we have amazing partnerships. When we work with our clients, we literally can go to any financial product or service out there and make and offer a recommendation. We're not limited. And we have so many expert industry professionals who are there to help us, help you as our clients. And they educate us, they take time. Ernie Jones, our guest speaker tonight, he's has a 4-month-old new baby at home, but because of his relationship with our company and our organization, he sees the significance of coming here to help us educate our clients. Ernie Jones has been in the financial industry almost 10 years and a true expert. For me, I know that I had a very unique situation I was helping a client with, and he was my go-to, help me really find the best solution for them. And that family, a year and a half later, they're so thankful for me, but I'm thanking Ernie because he helped me to be that resource to my clientele. So you all are in for a treat. Take some notes, take screenshots. I got a little sneak peek of what Ernie's going to talk about tonight. And trust me, you want to not only take notes, but share this information with other people in your family and your communities, because we all need to learn this information. So without further ado, Ernie, you
benefit, I've got to sit down, otherwise people here aren't going to be able to see the screen in front of me. So yeah, my name's Ernie Jones. I'm an external wholesaler, which means that I'm the guy who comes out and does speaking engagements, talking about the retirement industry, not just annuities in general, but kind of helping people understand the situation that we're looking at, the situation we're currently in, and not predicting the future, but understanding the multiple outcomes that can happen in the future. And one of the biggest things that has been the top of conversation, really, I would say, probably the last 6 months, has been interest rates. People don't understand what it is. They don't, know how it's going to affect their retirement, but they see it, they hear it. The headlines are all talking about the Federal Reserve. What are they going to do with their interest rates? They're going to drop before the election, or they're going to drop after, how much, this and that. And it's a lot of noise. And a lot of people are looking at it and they're making really, really emotional decisions. And what happens, as we know, is when people make emotional decisions, they tend to overprotect. And so I want to talk to people about what might seem like an oxymoron, but it's the hidden costs of cash. Because I'm sure that people have learned from their parents or their grandparents that the bank is where you can go to make sure your money's safe. And literally, when you think of a bank, you think of a vault, right? That it's protection, it's safety, it's keeping your money safe so you can retire as you want to retire. But we need to look at what that truly means, because there's another word that's really been rearing its ugly head the last 18 months or so. I'm sure if you've heard any political speech at all, it is inflation, right? I've heard more about the price of eggs in the last 2 years than I have in my previous 32. And honestly, I'm a little sick of it, but I'm sure it's going to continue happening. So we're going to talk about how to overcome the long-term side effects of holding on to too much cash. And really, there is quite a few that we need to pay attention to because it can really hinder or help your retirement. So right now, if we look at what is happening in the cash space, the money in banks and certificates of deposit at bank accounts right now, we're seeing just a huge increase in the amount of money that is just sitting there. It's there because people were nervous about what's happening or what was happening in the pandemic. They were nervous about the war in Ukraine, potential war in Taiwan, all this geopolitical stuff that is now, because the world has become so small, is affecting our everyday, right? About 4 weeks ago, there was something, this might not sound like anything to you, but there was a big shakeup in the value of the Japanese dollar, the Japanese yen. And the market lost its mind here in America for a day. And everyone said, oh, this is it. This is it. This is, I think Trump got on there and says the Kamala crash, and everyone was calling it the next Great Recession, and here it comes. And the next day, the market was up like 2%. People make these jerk decisions because they think, oh, so-and-so knows what they're talking about. I need to make this decision. I need to get out. I need to protect myself. And so people over the last 4 years have flooded so much money into banks. And if we look at really what the opportunity was, the high yield savings accounts, the certificates of deposit, were higher than they've been in decades. I know you probably still go get a 4-month CD at 4.5%. I get the calls from my bank, but people aren't realizing what that means. Certificates of deposit, I really want to drive this home, they're valuable pieces of investments, but they're also a little misleading on what you see. And I try to make people understand this. My wife wanted to buy this CD that this gentleman called us from PNC Bank, and he was offering us a 4-month CD at 4.5%. And my wife had the phone on speaker. It was for her account, and she looked at me like, and I just went. And so she said, "No, we're all set right now. We've got an advisor we're taking care of." And she hung up and she said, "Why wouldn't we do that?" And I said, "Because you aren't understanding what APY means." And so people see these flyers that come in the mail, the big billboards or posters that are in the banks that they're walking into, 5%, 6-month CD, 5% APY, and that's annual percentage yearly, right? Or annual percentage yield. So if you have a 4-month CD and it's 4.5%, you're only getting a third of that, 4/12. And so I told my wife, I said, we're really getting like 1.5%. She goes, oh. And I said, also, we're going to get a 1099 tax bill at the end of the year too to pay on top of that. So now we're looking at 1.3%. So is it worth it to us to lock up our money for 4 months and not have any access to it for a little over 1%? Doesn't seem as nice, right? Doesn't seem as popular or awesome as 4%, 4.5%. And so it's understanding what keeping that money in the bank on the sidelines is doing to us. And so all this money's flooded into the banks. We had high interest rates, higher than we've had in decades. But now we're at this point to where we're expecting tomorrow that Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve are going to drop interest rates. Whether it's going to be 0.25%, 0.5, 0.75. Some of the senators have written to them and said, please do it at 0.75, help the economy, because they're trying to juice the economy before the election and claim that it was their policies that did it, right? That's how it always goes with politics. And so what that means is that all of our yielding rates are going to start going down. The CD rates, the bonds that we're buying, they're going to start coming back down. This awesome period we've had is coming to an end. But it doesn't have to mean that we can't make money. It just means that let's not just look to the bank. Let's not just look to the safest route we can go. And so let's take a look at what the benefits of cash offer us. One of the biggest things is having access to your money, right? You go to the bank, you're going to be able to get it out. You're going to be able to write a check and fund something, a project, a bill that you owe. You can write a check and your money's going to come out of the bank account. We have things set up in place from our government, the FDIC, that's going to protect us from run on bank, or is designed to protect us from runs on bank, like we had that started the Great Depression. We now have things in place that keep us safe from that. So we don't have to worry about, is my money in the bank? Yes, it is. Emergency funds. People want to make sure they have 4, 5, 6, 8 months of their standard costs set aside. It's great to have that available if you need to go make a withdrawal, write a check, wire money, whatever it might be. And the biggest thing that people have been going to the bank for is because there's no volatility in your checking account and savings account, right? There's nothing, you don't have to worry about what you're seeing on the news headlines about what's happening in the world because your money's just sitting there. It's earning a little bit of a percentage, but you don't got to worry about bad. So is that the best option for us, or is it just readily available? Kind of like junk food. Are you hungry? Sure. Can you go to Taco Bell? Yeah. Is it going to make you live till you're 100? Probably not, right? But I still do it. So people look at this and it's kind of like an observation bias. It's available to us. They see other people doing it, so they think it's the best option available to them. But safety is not just available only at the bank. And I'm gonna get a little bit into that about other options we have that can give you safety and safety in writing too, which is what we want, right? I grew up in Flint, Michigan, which means that all of my aunts and uncles, grandparents, their parents, my mom and dad, they all worked in the factory for General Motors. And so what do they have that a lot of people don't have nowadays? That's a pension, right? The best thing that you could do in Flint, Michigan when you graduated high school was walk across the street to a factory and get a job. It was literally the American dream. I think people forget sometimes that in the 50s and 60s, Flint, Michigan was the highest median income city in the nation because of those jobs. But that's not really available anymore, right? But I understand the value of what it means to have guarantee, to make sure you're having a check coming in every month, every week, every year for the rest of your life. That is something that many Americans are striving for and don't know how to get to. So they take the next best option, which is just guaranteed safety. And a lot of times at the bank is what they choose. So what is some of the, maybe the downside or the cash conundrums of keeping too much money in cash? Well, there's no long-term guarantees. Like I mentioned, if you're doing a 4-month CD, you have to renew in 4 months in 1 day. If the Fed is cutting rates tomorrow and then expected a couple more times this year, that 4.5% CD is not going to be offered at 4.5% in 4 months in 1 day. What are you going to do? Are you going to settle for a 2% CD or a 3 or a 1? We don't know what rates are going to look like, but we know that they're probably going to be cut. The bank, they've helped us out a lot, right? But let's be realistic. They're not martyrs. They're not going to keep rates inflated to help us out. They're going to make sure that they're not losing money. So they're going to make sure that they're going to cut rates to keep in line with what current environment says. Also, the loss of purchasing power. That's what I was talking about with inflation. How much is your $100 worth now versus what it was worth 5 years ago, a decade ago, right? Do you remember back in the time where making $100,000 put you really up there in the world, right? Yeah. I remember the first time I made $100,000 and I thought I was the coolest crap on the street, right? You know, I started spending a little bit too much and now $100,000 wasn't worth $100,000 to me. And now I look at my life and I couldn't go back to that. The way things cost now, I've got a daughter and God, formula is expensive. Yes. I will tell you, I even buy the Costco brand and it is still wildly expensive. But things just continue to increase over time. And usually that's a good thing, right? Who here has heard the term GDP? CPI? I mean, there's supposed to be inflation. There's supposed to be increases in the stuff. It's what drives the growth of our economy. But we can't have it at 10% like it was a year ago. It is coming down now. It is getting much more in line with what their expectation is of 2 or 3%. And that's why we're looking at the Fed to cut rates, because we're not in this crazy environment like we were, so they can relax a little bit. And then the opportunity cost, the cash drag. If you have too much money sitting in the bank, how are you building your wealth? What good is $50,000 if it never becomes more than $50,000? Especially if it's earmarked for retirement. Because you might be 40, 45 years old, and at 60, that's not going to buy you much. In that much time, it might get you through 5 months, 4 months of your retirement. We need to make sure that we're not hamstringing ourselves by being too overly conservative, by having too much money in the bank, and allow the financial professionals around us who do this, only do this for their job, help us make money and make our money work for us, right? Have you ever heard that phrase? Make your money work for you. Don't work for your money. That's what we can do, but having too much money in the bank and sitting in cash can really hinder that. So let's take a little look here at what we're looking at in terms of what interest rates do for us if we stay ultra conservative in 2 different environments. So this is the cash conundrum in action. And what you can see right here is, and if you can't read it, I understand. This is a little bit far away, a little bit small, but this is a high yield savings account that is guaranteed to give you 4.5% for 5 years. After 5 years, your value is going to be $124,000. But we can't really guarantee or expect 4.5 to stick around, right? That's what I was just saying. If rates start coming down, those yields are going to start coming down. So this next section we have right here is only 1 year of 4.5, and then it drops to 3.5 for 2 years, 2.5 for the final 2 years. Or I'm sorry, 3.5 for the second year, 2.5 for the final 3 years. $8,000 difference because of decrease in interest rates, which is what we are expecting. And honestly, we were expecting kind of a slow decrease over the next 18 to 24 months. So this isn't going to be a short term. By the end of the year, we've got it all figured out. So are you willing to take that bet? Are you willing to take that risk that rates are going to stay high enough so you can get some consistency? Or are you understanding that if rates start coming down, there's going to be a huge disparity from what you've expected to what you can get? Just to put in perspective over the recent history, and this is going back about 30 years, this looks at the highest point of interest rates and then what the next 5 years average out to be. So you can see we've had rates very similar kind of to what we're at least on the first three. We're at about a 5.25 or 5.5% rate right now. And so we're right around what that third column is, a little bit below the first two. But you can see that the average rate from the following 5 years is substantially lower than what that peak was. So the previous slide showing that decrease of 4.5 to 3.5 to 2.5 is very well within target of what we've seen over the last 30 years. When the rates decrease, they continue to decrease until they get to the point to where the economy is stable for a while. We can't deal in immediacy of, okay, the economy is good for 1 year, let's hike them back up. We would just keep creating a cycle that we can't sustain. So it's got to be a long-term period that these rates stay where they're at. And so let's look at the spectrum of safety. And we're talking about not putting your money in Bitcoin. We're not talking about going buying $100,000 of lottery scratchers. We're talking about things that are completely safe on that downside protection. First, we've got all the way over here, as safe as you can be, that is money sitting in your savings account. Might be earning a meager couple percent, maybe 0.5%, depends on what bank you're at. We've got certificates of deposit, which give you a little bit more. Right now, like I said, a 4 month is probably going to yield you total about 1.3%, 1.4%. But also you're committing your money for 4 years or 4 months. You can't touch it for 4 months without penalty. Then we've got our fixed annuities. Fixed annuities you can kind of think of as a longer term CD where it's stated guarantee rate every year, but you get tax deferral on it too. So you get to build upon the previous year. You're not getting that tax bill at the end of every year. So you're deferring and building upon last year's returns for 3, 5, 7 years. It gives you a longer guarantee and is still completely guaranteed of no risk. And then we've got fixed indexed annuities. Fixed index annuities are going to put in writing, you cannot lose a dime due to market performance. But they're also going to allow you to choose some indexes that track up. So you're kind of having your cake and eating it too. You're getting in writing that you can't lose money, but we're saying, hey, we're going to allow you to track the S&P 500 up positive for a bit. We're going to give you an opportunity to make money when the market is doing well. So you get to capture some of that and still have all that safety you've been looking for. And so where would you like to fall on that spectrum? Being very, very safe, knowing you can go access your money in the bank account, but not earning much. Locking up your money for a short period of time for not that much gain. Getting a guaranteed rate for a short period of time, or getting guaranteed safety and growing your money towards retirement. So an annuity, really at its core, what it is it's kind of like retirement insurance. We insure everything in our life, right? We've got health insurance, we've got car insurance. I've got insurance on my phone because I'm clumsy and I break this thing all the time. Why is it that many people aren't having the conversation about insuring their retirement? It's the thing you've literally worked your whole adult life for, right? Why are we not putting a airbag around this thing as we drive towards retirement? So what can this fixed annuity and fixed index annuity offer us? Well, it's, like I said, going to offer you in writing guaranteed protection from market loss. It's going to allow you a level of liquidity, meaning you can get in and get some money every year if you desire that. So you will have access to your money much more than the CD is going to offer you. You're going to get that tax deferred growth. You're going to build upon every year's growth the next year. If you don't know, if you haven't heard of the rule of 72, I would say talk to your friend who's invited you to this conversation. They'll explain it to you. It's one of the most powerful investing tools there has ever been, is understanding what compound interest does for us. And then we've got additional features that you can add on for whatever your specific scenario is. Enhanced death benefits if you'd like to leave a legacy. Long-term care if you're worried about chronic illness down the road. Lifetime income even. And I want to make sure to make this little addendum here before we get too deep into this conversation. I want everyone to understand what lifetime income and annuities do, because there's a lot of misleading headlines or flyers or radio advertisements that you'll hear saying, we're going to take 40% off your retirement. We're going to make it cost 40% less. We're going to give you X amount of money right away. We're going to give you huge bonuses and lifetime income. I want people to understand that when you're talking about annuities with lifetime income, when you have those really big bonuses that are offered, it comes with stipulations. A lot of the times when you get big 35, 40% bonuses, you can't touch your money for quite some time, or it breaks that bonus or it breaks that contract and you end up paying a fee. When you have those really big bonuses, what those do is they increase your paycheck. They don't increase your real money. There's two categories in income annuities. There's your real money that invests in the indexes you choose, and there's what's called your paycheck value or income base. A lot of times it's referred to. That's where your bonus goes up. So if you follow the rules and take out their select percentage that you're offered, you're going to get that bonus value. You're going to be able to get an increase on your paycheck, but you're not going to be able to take a 40% bonus and walk away. Right. And I think there's a lot of confusion on that. Sometimes people hear that and they think, oh my God, my 100,000 will be worth 140. I made $40,000. Not really. If you follow the rules and take the paycheck down the road, yes, but it's not true hard cash. It's just benefiting your paycheck. And I just want to make that addendum just because I feel like a lot of times people will say stuff and it's not as clear as it should be. So I would always say talk to your financial professional about this. They'll be able to explain the difference between real bonus and paycheck bonus. So fixed annuities and fixed index annuities, they have, like I said, a couple different areas that they differ and a couple areas that they're exactly the same. So we're going to have protection from market loss. Again, that's in writing in the contract that you're going to get after you fund this and it gets placed and all of that. In writing, cannot lose money due to market performance. That is a very, very nice feature to have, to be able to show everybody that wants to listen. Hey, I can't lose any money. You just lost 25% because Donald Trump got reelected, because Kamala Harris got elected. Ha ha ha, right? I got it in writing, but none of this is going to hurt me. Fixed rate. Fixed rate means, again, you're going to get your stated growth per year. And that's what a fixed annuity offers. Fixed index annuities don't have that. So again, fixed annuity is kind of like that long certificate of deposit. Market link growth potential, as I said, with fixed index annuities, you're going to be able to pick your investment within the options they have, and you're going to grow with it. So you're going to get more exposure up while having no exposure down. We're going to offer you liquidity. A lot of our products that we offer on this platform, not just with this company Athene here that we see in the lower right-hand corner, but the majority of them offer you up to 10% per year that you can take without penalty. So you have access to some of your money. This is going to allow you to have your midlife crisis and buy a Corvette. Probably not. I hope you have that big of a contract. That'd be amazing that you're set up that well for financial success, but you do have some access. And then both of them are going to give you tax deferral, because that is at the core what an annuity offers. Any annuity is going to offer you tax deferral. In fact, to put it as plainly as I can, your 401k is how you have tax deferral. Your IRA is how you have tax deferral. The IRS looks at annuities the same way. They're called retirement vehicles because they allow you to get that tax deferral. So if that puts into perspective of how this is going to work, it's going to let you build and build upon everything you've made until you start taking your money out down the road. And then the death benefit. We're going to have a guaranteed death benefit. We can add enhanced death benefits. We're not just going to leave your heirs with nothing in your event of your passing. So let's talk about this return on our rate a little bit more. Put it into more real numbers, real perspective versus both a fixed annuity and versus a fixed index annuity, which will be on the next slide here. But we're talking about the cash at, again, a 4.5% for 5 years versus a fixed annuity, which is currently offering 5% for 5 years. Not too much of a difference, right? It's pretty close, 4.5, 5. They're close enough. So there's not too much of a difference of only $3,000. But if we go to a scenario where, as we're expecting, rates are going to continue to decline, they go from 4.5 to 3.5 to 2.5 for the next 3 years. That becomes an $11,000 gap between those two. Because the fixed annuity is saying you're going to get 5% and you're going to get it for 5 years. The rate doesn't change on a fixed annuity. It can change in a high yield savings account or when you're renewing every CD every 12 months or 6 months. So it offers you more peace of mind, more stability, more certainty in what you can get. Then in a fixed indexed annuity, again, this is where we're tied to the market. We're looking at whatever our index option is. S&P 500 is one of the most popular options that are chosen. So you're going to track that up, but you're not going to lose any money. Again, 4.5% for 5 years versus being able to grow with the market. Even when there is a negative performance, as you can see in that second year, there's -8 return on that index. You'll see that your return is 0 because you cannot lose. All it is 0% for that year. Best of luck next year. Ride that wave back up as everybody else who's fully invested in the market is trying to dig their way out of that 8% hole. You're starting right where you were. You're ahead of everybody else. And we can see that the gap here, even when that 4.5% is fixed, is $32,000. But if we have the decreasing rate environment like we're talking about here, that goes up to almost $41,000 difference because we're not certain what rates are going to stay at for the cash, but we're just going to sit here and still be able to track the market. We're still going to be able to ride it up because when interest rates go down, that doesn't mean that the market's going to go down. The market's still going to do what it does. It's going to go up and down. It's going to ebb and flow, and we're going to give you the ability every year to capture that. And so how can we kind of blend things together? How can we get a little bit of that guarantee and a little bit of the opportunity? Because we kind of want to be a little greedy in this, right? This is our retirement. Yeah, I want what I want. And so we have opportunities that we can do. And again, talk to your financial professional. We can build specific scenarios to what you're looking for. And if you wanted to blend half of your assets into a fixed annuity and half into a fixed index annuity, you could get 50% of it that's giving you a guaranteed rate. So you know you're going to have something every year. But the other half is going to be reaching a little bit. It's going to be reaching for that higher growth opportunity while still 100% of it, you don't have to worry about the bad. I need everybody to understand that when we're investing, loss hurts us so much more than gain helps us. To put into perspective, 2009, the Great Recession, the market was down at its lowest about 50%, but it ended the year down about 39.5%. For an idea of what you need, that's over a 60% return to get back to where you were at the start of the downturn. To get back to square one, you need a 60% return. If you're approaching retirement, can you afford to wait for a 60% return to come? That's 2, 3, 4, 5 years that could take to get back to where you were versus if you invest in something like a fixed index annuity. That's like taking one of those old 70s muscle cars that had just really hard metal as your safety feature if you got in an accident and adding all the technology of airbags and collision awareness and all of that into it now. We're going to allow you to keep driving towards that goal, towards that retirement date, but we're putting all the safety we can around you so you don't have a big downturn that moves your retirement date out. So really, you need to have the conversation with yourself, your spouse, your financial professional. How much cash do you really need? Do a financial needs analysis. See what your fixed costs are. See what your variable costs are month by month. Do you need $80,000 in your bank account? Maybe not. You might only need 40. You might need 50. We have many, many tools here that can help you figure that out so that you're not keeping too much cash and hurting yourself by being overly conservative. So I urge everybody to make sure you're having a conversation with whoever it is that invited you to this call. If you're here in person, reach out to them. It doesn't cost anything. to make sure that you're not hurting yourself by being too safe. They can help you out with calculating your cash needs. They can help you explore the many, many varieties of annuities that we have from the top carriers in the industry. And it's going to help you grow interest instead of excess cash. It's going to allow you to make your money work for you instead of you working for your money. Thank you very much, everybody. And here's all the beautiful legal disclosures.
Yeah, any questions from the audience? Anyone on Zoom, you can put your questions in the chat. We have those. We'll take a moment. Wasn't that great information?
Yes, awesome.
Like how many people like you wish was here with you learning this information, right? All right, we'll see if there's any other questions or any questions. Ernie, you did such a great job. You just answered it all. Yes.
100% success rate.
Concept of splitting is doing a blend of fixing the money and the fixed index annuity.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for everywhere I sell, we're seeing a lot more of that because, I mean, honestly, people are more comfortable knowing they're going to get something, but they also know that there's more out there. So just having your cake and eat it too, get guaranteed, get opportunity. You can have both.
Well, maybe we could speak to how we determine if this makes sense for someone. Because as a professional, like even though it's a great solution, for compliance reasons, we can't put every single dollar you have or want into like these type of strategies. You have to, we have to do a good job as financial professionals of making sure folks have other adequate savings because the annuities, as Ernie mentioned, a portion of it is still in a contract. It still does have some provisions attached to it. And we don't want, we wouldn't want you into having access or having no access to any money at all. So we do want to make sure you have adequate savings outside of this strategy as well. Because I know that's one question I get. They're like, I love it. I want the annuity. I'm like, hold on. Let's look at the complete financial profile. This is one aspect of something that we could look into. Ernie, we have a question. It says, are the fixed income annuities for set periods of time? Are those periods of time determined by the investor?
So that's a yes and no, depending on how you want to define set by the investor. So the annuities themselves are going to have what's called a surrender period. And it's going to be 5, 7, 8, 10 years. But within the product, your income that you're going to create for yourself isn't tied to waiting that long or isn't tied to only that period. The majority of the products that we have, it is your call on when you want to start your income, and they will give you whatever rate it's going to be at that age. It'll be different from 65 to 66, but you can make the determination when you want to retire. Very few of these are going to say you have to wait X amount of years. We have a lot of flexibility through the many carriers that we have on the platform, many very different options of income for increasing inflation, guaranteed level, big bonus. We have a lot of options available. You are able to choose what it is that you want that works best with your scenario.
Yep.
Very bright.
Ernie, we're talking about age range.
Yep.
What's the youngest and what's the oldest from a suitability standpoint?
I gotta be really careful about how I answer this. This client.
So just to repeat the question for those on Zoom, it was a question of like, what age does this make sense for folks? The youngest and the oldest age?
I would say really it's anyone who is at the point of they consider themselves close to approaching retirement. I can't give you an exact age. I can't because every scenario is different. Some people want to retire at 75, some want to retire at 60. So as you're approaching retirement and you've got a handful of years in front of you, not 2 decades, but a handful of years that you're approaching this, you can start talking about income. We have scenarios or we have annuities available that could be a little bit further away from retirement that are just to grow your money without having any downside risk. So you're in that approaching retirement phase. But World Financial Group and WealthWave, they have parameters set up and they have things that help everybody guide. Here's the product that should work in this scenario. This is going to be suitable for this age of client, all of that. So I apologize, I can't give you a
No,
direct
I only
answer.
asked
but-
because I know there's people on Zoom that may be in that,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a 30-year-old that you're gonna be putting into an income product. This is gonna be the 50-ish, 60-ish type of client who is really ready to say, okay, I need to set my guarantees. I need my budget set for retirement. So I've got everything covered.
Just a question, Mark. How can they guarantee income for life?
So-
How are these people want to know what's the catch?
Yeah, no, I get up here all the time and I feel like a snake oil salesman because how does this not sound awesome, right? I'm just the most generous guy in the world. So these insurance companies make money in really one of two ways. So it depends on what type of product you're choosing. If you're choosing an accumulation annuity, which is just growth, most of the time those products are free. And I always say that in air quotes because people go, all right, really? And so I have to relay that there is no inherent fee on these products. There's nothing that's coming out every year. What you have is a commitment of time. So whatever that surrender period is, the shortest that we have is 5 years, the longest that we have is 10. Whatever works for your scenario, you go into the contract, and if you follow the rules of how much you can take out per year, you're never going to pay a true fee. But you're guaranteeing or you're committing to the insurance company, I'm going to leave it here for 5 years. And just as you do when you go and cash a check at the bank, they don't throw it in the vault, right? They put it to work. They loan it out in car loans, mortgages, all of that. The insurance company now is a commitment for you that this money is going to stay here for the most part for 5 years or 10 years. So they can make money off of it as well. That's how they don't charge a fee. And then when it comes to the income side, there usually is a small fee ranging around like 1% per year. And so yes, it is a fee, but I always like to drive home. A fee is only a fee when there's no value. If I'm going to tell you, Todd, I'm going to give you a paycheck every month for the rest of your life, it doesn't matter if your account runs to zero, that paycheck is going to continue coming. Is it worth 1% per year for you?
Sure.
Right. So it is a fee, but there's a lot of value added. And that's how also they'll make money and cover their costs.
So we had another question come in. It says, in the illustrations showing the CD versus the index annuity performance over the 5-year span, confirming you show the lowering of the interest rates dropping at the same time, assuming the index will perform just as it did in the 5 years with the higher interest rates. Oh, he wants to confirm. Assuming the index will perform just as it did in the 5 years with the higher interest rates.
So I think what the illustration showing the CD versus the index annuity performance over 5 years. Okay. Confirming you show the lowering of or projection of lower interest rates while using the same year fixed index annuity performance. Okay. Yeah. So I think that kind of goes into what I said at the end there, that interest rates are not directly correlated to market performance. So when we had the scenario here, I think I already ended. Oh, no, I didn't
I
actually.
stopped sharing it. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. So when I had the scenario of the CD that was paying the 4.5%, and then it dropped to 3.5, then 2.5, and then the index stayed the same. When interest rates come down, that doesn't mean that the market is going to change how it acts. And so we kept those numbers the same just because that was market return. We've had some of the best market returns ever in high interest rate environments and low interest rate environments. So that is not indicative of how those returns on the index are going to work. Yeah, this.
It also doesn't talk about the fact that one's tax deferred and one is paying tax every year.
Right.
They can't see it on the Zoom, but I don't know how to pull it back on there. Maybe. Is this the Zoom? Sorry, I was just trying to, we're trying to just reshare the screen so you can look at it. Was it this one?
Yes.
Okay. Is it showing on the Zoom? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just because interest rates are coming down doesn't mean that the market is going to come down. Actually, you can look at it and say, depends on what you're investing in. If you look at when those really aggressive tech stocks did really well up until the pandemic, it's because interest rates were really, really low and they could borrow a lot of money for research and development for very, very cheap. Interest rates went up, those tech stocks started getting hurt on their returns. So it's not how the whole market functions.
is correlated to this. Interest rates come down and people are still gonna buy and sell stocks and still try to make money the same way they do every year. Yes.
When Japan raised the interest rate to 0.25, you know how it crashed the market?
Yep.
You said it. Everything took it up. Why wouldn't 0.25 interest rate for us raise all those stock markets?
Can you repeat the question for the Zoom people?
Yeah, so he asked about when the Japanese yen, is it the yen or is the yen, not the
Yes.
yuan? Yeah, the yuan is China.
Right.
When the yen really fluctuated due to the Central Bank of Japan raising their rates, why would the American economy not function the same, correct? Is that,
Right.
why is there not?
If they raise it by 0.25.
Right. Right, so you have to look at it. It really is just where have the economies been? The Japanese economy has been struggling for years and years. They were at the point up until they raised rates that there were negative interest
Yeah.
rates. It cost you money to buy bonds in
Right.
Japan. And so them raising rates was kind of a different,
Mindset, maybe?
it was a different mindset, but it was also kind of a trigger to a different outlook on their economic growth. When we lower rates, that is indicative of us saying, okay, we feel like the economy can be loosened up a little bit. Every time interest rates go down, that means that money's gonna be easier and cheaper. So that all these companies are gonna be able to borrow for much cheaper and they're gonna be able to grow if they want to.
Right.
Money got really expensive over the last 2 years as the Fed raised the rates up to 5.25. So it really is two different economies and you can't really compare either because the US is the standard for the entire world. And so it's a little bit more, it's a little less speculative whenever rates change on that than Japan, who had a lost decade, who's had negative interest rates and really it's more of a gamble investing in the Japanese economy than it is in the US economy. If you're just looking at purely what they've done over the last 20 years.
Is there another chat? I can't pull it up over here anymore.
Is the time frame the same for fixed annuity and fixed index annuity? They can't be the same.
So the question was, is the time frame same for fixed or fixed indexed annuity? There are overlapping time frames. Fixed annuities, I think we have anything from 3 to 7 years or 3 to 10 years. And it usually is 3, 5, 7, 10. Those are just whatever numbers most insurance companies choose. And our fixed index annuities are 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Actually, we got one for every year, 5 through 10. So it's just, there's a lot of overlap, but it doesn't mean it. There's no reasoning to it. It's just what's being offered. Yes.
I'm just curious, if you were to split the fixed index annuity, 50% in there, 50% fixed annuity, and on the good years, when you're only getting 50% with the higher interest rates, and then you're getting simply 5% as an example, could we ask for an illustration just to be able to see what it would look like if we had 100% fixed index versus the 50% split?
Let's
I'm
hope that
curious if there's going to
I mean, yeah, they're two separate products. So you could get an illustration just for a fixed annuity.
yeah, it will.
You got two.
And we'll
Yeah.
dive into specific questions. So any other questions from our clients or guests? If there are none, we want to thank Ernie for his time and for associates. Hang on, because we want to have more specific questions that we want to have Ernie answer for us. So we'll end this portion of our educational presentation. Thank you again, Ernie, so much for joining us tonight.